Going out tonight changes into something red. Her mother doesn't like that kind of dress.
They were the biggest boy band in the world. Millions of fans, sold-out arenas, and record-breaking albums. But behind the flashing lights and screaming crowds, there was a darker story. One filled with scandals, secrets, and struggles the world never saw. This is the untold truth about One Direction. In 2010, 5 ordinary teenagers walked onto the stage of the X Factor UK. Harry Styles, Liam Payne, Louis Tomlinson, Niall Horan, and Zayn Malik. Alone, they didn't make it far. But Judge Simon Cowell saw something no one else did, and he put them together as a group. That decision changed music history. Almost overnight, One Direction became a phenomenon. Their charm, energy, and looks made headlines. Within months, their fan base exploded, and suddenly, they were no longer just boys from small towns. They were global superstars. Success came fast, maybe too fast. One Direction went from schoolboys to international icons in a matter of months. But behind the screaming fans and flashing cameras was a grueling schedule. Endless tours, interviews, and appearances left the boys with little to no personal freedom. They were constantly on display, every move controlled by management, every word monitored. Fame had a price, and the cracks were already beginning to show. From the outside, One Direction looked perfect, 5 best friends living the dream. But the reality was much more complicated. Fame, money, and constant pressure began to create cracks between the members. Rumors of fights backstage started spreading. Fans noticed cold glances during interviews, awkward silences on stage, and small gestures that hinted at deeper tensions. Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson were constantly targeted by tabloids with rumors about their relationship, creating awkwardness that management tried to shut down. Zayn Malik often looked distant, frustrated with the group's image and lack of creative freedom. Liam Payne admitted years later that there were nights when the boys couldn't even stand to be in the same room together. These weren't just growing pains, they were signs of a storm brewing beneath the surface. One Direction wasn't just a band, they were a cultural phenomenon. But with fame came an obsession unlike anything seen before. Fans followed their every move, creating online theories about secret romances and hidden messages in their lyrics. The pressure was overwhelming. Thousands of people waiting outside hotels, chasing their cars, even breaking into their homes. Social media amplified everything. A single tweet could start a worldwide trend in minutes, and rumors spread faster than the truth. Harry Styles once described it as living in a bubble where privacy didn't exist. The boys were loved, but at the same time, they were trapped, and that's why the band's shiny image began to crack. Behind the scenes, secrets and controversies piled up, and some of them were impossible to hide. In 2012, a leaked video of Zayn Malik and Louis Tomlinson smoking created a media firestorm, raising questions about the band's clean reputation. Harry Styles' relationships constantly made tabloid covers, most famously his romance with Taylor Swift, which became one of the most talked about celebrity stories of the decade. In 2015, Louis faced headlines after news broke that he was expecting a child. A shock for fans who saw him as the boy next door. Around the same time, Zayn's sudden absence from tours fueled speculation, with official statements citing stress, but rumors swirling about deeper conflicts. Liam Payne admitted to struggles with alcohol years later, confirming what many fans had suspected during the peak of One Direction's fame. These weren't just rumors, they were real moments that showed the darker, more complicated side of the world's biggest boy band. In May 2014, One Direction's polished image faced its first major test. A leaked video of Zayn Malik and Louis Tomlinson inside a car quickly spread across the internet. The footage showed them laughing, joking, and saying things that fueled endless speculation. For years, the group had been promoted as clean-cut and family-friendly. Suddenly, that image was in question. Newspapers published headlines about the controversial video. Parents wondered if the band was still a good influence. And fans debated online, some defending the boys, others feeling disappointed. Louis could be heard making jokes, while Zayn mostly stayed quiet. But the damage was already done. Management issued careful statements, trying to calm the chaos. The incident revealed something important. One Direction weren't just teenage idols anymore. They were young men under the spotlight, where even the smallest mistake became a worldwide scandal. In late 2012, Harry Styles' love life became one of the biggest stories in pop culture. When he started dating Taylor Swift, two of the most famous young stars in the world were suddenly a couple. Paparazzi followed them everywhere, walking in Central Park, attending concerts, and even spending New Year's Eve together. The media called them Hailer, and every photo made headlines. For fans, it was a mix of excitement and heartbreak. Some loved seeing their idol with another superstar, while others hated it. Their relationship lasted only a few months, ending in early 2013, but the impact was massive. Taylor later released songs widely believed to be about Harry, while fans dissected lyrics, music videos, and interviews for hidden references. What could have been a private teenage romance became one of the most dissected celebrity relationships of the decade. In July 2015, headlines shocked the world. Louis Tomlinson was going to be a father. At just 23 years old, the boy band star, known for his playful and carefree image, was suddenly facing real adult responsibility. The mother was Brianna Jungwirth, a stylist from Los Angeles, and the news spread like wildfire. For fans, it was one of the most dramatic moments in One Direction's history. Social media exploded. Some fans congratulated Louis, others refused to believe it, and many felt heartbroken. The story dominated tabloids for weeks, with paparazzi following Louis everywhere, eager for photos of him and Brianna. When his son Freddie was born in January 2016, Louis' life changed forever. It was a moment that reminded the world that beneath the fame, these were young men navigating real challenges, not just pop stars on a stage. In March 2015, One Direction's world changed. Zayn Malik suddenly pulled out of the band's world tour, with official statements citing stress and the need for rest. Fans were heartbroken, tabloids exploded, and speculation ran wild. For many, it was the first undeniable sign that something was seriously wrong. The image of 5 boys on stage was broken. At concerts, Zayn's absence was impossible to ignore, an empty space where one of the most beloved voices should have been. Management insisted it was temporary, but rumors spread. Creative disagreements, personal struggles, and burnout. For the fans, every silence felt like confirmation of the worst fears. Just days later, Zayn officially announced he was leaving One Direction for good. The news sent shockwaves around the world, marking the beginning of the end for the biggest boy band of a generation. On March 25, 2015, the announcement became official. Zayn Malik was leaving One Direction. The statement hit fans like a thunderclap. Social media exploded. Twitter recorded over 8 million mentions in just 24 hours, making it one of the most talked about moments in music history. Outside radio stations and concert venues, fans sobbed, some refusing to believe it was real. The band released a calm, carefully worded message, saying they respected Zayn's decision and would continue as a four-piece. But behind their measured words, the pain was visible. In interviews, Harry, Louis, Liam, and Niall tried to smile, but their voices shook. For the first time, the unstoppable machine of One Direction showed vulnerability. Zayn later said he wanted to be a normal 22-year-old, away from the spotlight. But for millions of fans, his departure felt like the end of an era, a reminder that even the biggest band in the world could break apart. After Zayn's departure in March 2015, One Direction faced the hardest test of their career. For the first time, they walked on stage as 4, not 5, The crowd screamed just as loud, but something was missing. Fans noticed the empty harmonies, the space in dance formations, the silence where Zayn's voice once soared. The band promised to keep going, and they did. Their fifth album, Made in the AM, was recorded without Zayn, and critics praised the maturity of their sound. But behind the smiles, the strain was obvious. Interviews grew more serious. The boys often dodged questions about the future, and their exhaustion was hard to hide. They pushed through, performing sold-out shows around the world, but fans could sense the countdown ticking. One Direction was still alive, but the magic was fading. In August 2015, just months after Zayn's departure, rumors began to spread that One Direction would take a break. At first, fans dismissed it as another tabloid story. But in late 2015, the truth came out. After finishing their world tour and releasing their fifth album, the band would go on hiatus in 2016. The word hiatus was supposed to sound temporary, a pause, not an ending. But for millions of fans, it felt like goodbye. Social media erupted with hashtags like, "This is not the end," and "Thank you 1D." Fans begged the boys not to leave, while others tried to stay hopeful. The band reassured everyone they would come back after a year or two, but deep down, many suspected it was over. Their final performance before the break came on the X Factor UK in December 2015, the same stage where it all began. It was emotional, bittersweet, and unforgettable. When One Direction went on hiatus in 2016, many wondered which member would rise as a true solo star. The answer came quickly: Harry Styles. In 2017, he released his debut single Sign of the Times, a dramatic, nearly 6-minute ballad that shocked critics and fans alike. This wasn't the bubblegum pop of One Direction. This was raw, powerful, and ambitious. His debut album proved he was more than a boy band heartthrob. He was an artist. Harry embraced a bold fashion style, blurring gender lines and becoming a fashion icon. He starred in Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk, showing the world his talent wasn't limited to music. Over the years, with albums like Fine Line and Harry's House, he cemented his place as one of the biggest solo artists of the decade. For Harry, the hiatus wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something even bigger. When One Direction announced their hiatus, many doubted whether Niall Horan could succeed on his own. He was often seen as the easygoing, light-hearted one, the boy with the guitar and the constant smile. But in 2016, Niall proved everyone wrong. His debut single, This Town, was a soft, acoustic ballad, and it became an instant hit. Critics praised his sincerity, and fans connected deeply with the raw honesty of his lyrics. In 2017, his first album, Flicker, topped charts in multiple countries, showing that Niall wasn't just surviving after One Direction, he was thriving. Unlike the drama surrounding other members, Niall kept a low profile, letting his music speak for itself. Over the years, with songs like Slow Hands and Nice to Meet Ya, he built a strong reputation as a respected singer-songwriter. Niall Horan, the so-called quiet one, had become a star in his own right. Of all the members of One Direction, Tomlinson faced some of the hardest challenges after the hiatus. Known in the band as the playful, cheeky one, Louis stepped into the solo world carrying both hope and heartbreak. His debut single, Just Hold On, released in late 2016, was a tribute to strength and perseverance. It struck a deep chord with fans, who saw in Louis not just a performer, but a fighter. In interviews, he admitted feeling pressure to prove himself as an artist, often overshadowed by bigger headlines about his bandmates. But slowly, through songs like Back to You and his debut album Walls in 2020, Louis carved his own identity in the industry. He wasn't chasing trends, he was telling his own story. For fans, Louis became a symbol of resilience, someone who had been through pain but stood taller because of it. Payne was often seen as the responsible one in One Direction. the steady voice who kept the group together. But when the band went on hiatus, Liam revealed a different side of his story. In interviews years later, he spoke honestly about how difficult life in the spotlight had been. He admitted that the constant touring, the pressure to perform, and the lack of privacy had taken a toll. Fame had come with a cost. His debut solo single, Strip That Down, in 2017, showed a new, edgier image of Liam. And while the song was a commercial hit, critics were divided. Some embraced his transformation, while others questioned his direction. But through it all, Liam remained open about his struggles and growth, showing fans that even pop stars are human. His honesty gave him a new kind of respect, not just as a performer, but as someone brave enough to speak the truth. When Zayn Malik left One Direction in 2015, the world wondered if he could make it on his own. Just months later, in early 2016, he gave his answer with Pillow Talk. The single shot straight to #1 in multiple countries, including the United States, and his debut album Mind of Mine proved he was more than ready to stand alone. Critics praised his bold R&B style, so different from the pop anthems of One Direction. For fans, it was a revelation. Zayn had found his own voice. But as the years went on, his path looked different from the others. He performed less, rarely toured, and gradually stepped away from the spotlight. While Harry, Niall, Louis, and Liam continued to build strong public images, Zayn chose solitude. Some fans missed his presence, while others admired his decision to protect his peace. Zayn Malik had shown he could be a superstar, but he also showed that fame wasn't everything. After the hiatus, One Direction's story didn't end. It transformed. Instead of one band, there were now 5 solo artists, and the media wasted no time turning their journeys into a competition. Headlines compared album sales, chart positions, and ticket numbers. Who was the most successful? Who had the strongest voice? Who was destined to fade away? Harry Styles was hailed as the breakout star, praised for his bold artistry. Niall Horan was called the surprise success, proving he could stand on his own. Tomlinson was often framed as struggling for recognition, while Liam Payne's every move was scrutinized. And Zayn, the first to go solo, was painted as the rebel, the outsider. These labels weren't always fair, but they shaped the narrative. For fans, it created debates and divisions online, with people defending their favorites. The truth was that each of them was carving a different path. But for the media, it was easier to frame it as a battle for the crown of One Direction. The Directioners were more than just fans, they were a global army. During One Direction's peak, they broke records, sold out stadiums, and turned every hashtag into a worldwide trend. But after the hiatus, that unity began to fracture. With each member pursuing a solo career, fans faced a choice: who to support. For some, it was easy. They stayed loyal to all 5, celebrating each success. But for many, the fan base split into camps: Harry's, Louis', Niallers, Liam stans, and Squad for Zayn. Online debates grew intense, sometimes even toxic, as fans argued over whose music was better, whose career was stronger, and who truly carried the spirit of One Direction. Yet despite the rivalries, one thing never changed: the Directioners' passion. They still filled arenas, streamed songs to the top of charts, and demanded a reunion. Whether united or divided, the fan base kept the legacy of One Direction alive. More than a decade has passed since 5 teenagers first walked onto the stage of the X Factor UK in 2010. In just a few short years, One Direction became the biggest boy band of their generation, breaking records, dominating charts, and filling stadiums across the globe. But their legacy is more than numbers. They were a cultural force. They gave a voice to millions of young fans who found comfort, joy, and belonging in their music. Songs like What Makes You Beautiful, Story of My Life, and Drag Me Down became anthems for a generation, sung in bedrooms, classrooms, and arenas. Even after the hiatus, the demand for a reunion has never faded. Fans still chant their names, celebrate their anniversaries, and trend hashtags each year. Individually, Harry, Niall, Louis, Liam, and Zayn built their own identities, but together, they created something bigger than themselves. The story of One Direction is a reminder of the power of music, the cost of fame, and the unbreakable bond between artists and fans. They were 5 boys who became a phenomenon, and even if the band never reunites, their impact will live forever.
Sing it! I know, I know, I know.